What is going on, gamers? Aevatrex here, and today we are going to be talking about a subject that a lot of people always bring up and a lot of people always want to know about, and that is iOS versus Android. Which is the more competitive server, which server has the more top-end accounts, and which one has the better deals. Now, I've pretty much heard this both ways. Although, as far as competitive servers, it's pretty much unanimous that Android is the more competitive server. But when we talk about the deals and the events, that's where I see more of a divide there. A lot of people from iOS say that we get better bazaar deals, and a lot of people from Android say that iOS get better events. Like, for instance, on the bingo, iOS gets a level 3 revitalized crest set, while Android gets a level 2. Now that is a huge difference, because we're talking about we would have to do 4 bingo events in order to get the same amount that it would take for one bingo event on iOS. Now, iOS people say that they haven't had bazaars that offer pumpkin dukes and cupids, etc. for $5. Now, I've heard otherwise, but it's only been from like 1 or 2 people. I myself have never played in iOS, so I don't know exactly what iOS has to offer. I don't know what their top players look like. I don't know what their top guilds look like. But from what I'm understanding is that Android has the more competitive people as far as from top to bottom. Now, right now we have 2 people at 300 or over 300,000, and quite a few almost getting there. So like MVZ is probably going to get there here pretty soon. Now, I don't know what iOS has, so maybe you guys can fill me in the comment section. But what I mean is, we don't have to compare the top 10, because the top 10 is probably going to look fairly similar. But what I mean is, from 1 all the way to like 100, what is going to be the difference? Like, our 100th person is 244,000 might. I'm curious to see what iOS 100th person looks like. Now, if we look at maybe the 200th person, let's see, our 200th person is still roughly about 239,000. So, if anybody has iOS, go ahead, take a look at your rankings and tell me what you're looking at. And as far as the guilds, the top guilds is probably going to look fairly similar, but what I'm interested to know is, what about the top 40? You know, what's the 40th ranked guild in iOS look like? That's how we'll determine if iOS is more top heavy and then not much else, or is Android more of a balanced server. Now, I've talked to a lot of people that also play on iOS and Android on both top accounts, and the consensus is that Android does have more competition, whereas iOS has a lot of easy targets for guild wars. For instance, like sniping in iOS is not nearly as hard as Android. But when we talk about Android versus iOS, regardless of what it is, whether it's a game, whether it's phones, etc., there's always going to be a war. Just it's always going to happen. So this question has been posed 100 times now. Well, which server is the better one? And I haven't played iOS, so I need to hear from iOS people, or preferably people that have played both servers, to see what's your take on this, because I myself have only played Android ever, so I can't really tell you if it's more competitive and whatnot. Although I can tell you this much, from what I have seen from videos that I've seen from JT, which he is on iOS, the guild wars in the top end, it doesn't seem to be very hard as far as sniping, etc. At least nowhere near the Android server. Now, that's just me from seeing it from afar. I'm not really doing it, so again, that's just the eyeball test, if they like to call it in sports. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think about all of this? Which one has the advantage where? That way I can finally learn more about where we stand as far as each server. And for those of you that have been saying you want to see Android and iOS become one server, what IGG has stated on that is that they cannot do that, because when they did Android and iOS, there was no super server back then. And that's basically what they have in Lords Mobile. Lords Mobile is another IGG game that they actually have Android and iOS together without any sort of difference. So there wasn't that in it back then. So if they were to do that now, they would have to start everybody clean. There's no way to merge them. But yeah, I'll be reading the comments and seeing what you guys have to say. And thank you guys for watching. And until later. Bye.